Wheel of Fortune with Marjorie Taylor Greene's bestie. Just to give you an example of how long the guy has been hosting the show, do you want to know who was being interviewed right back in the day, on the same day he hosted his first Wheel of Fortune? It's weird. Another friend of Marjorie Grader, close.
For some people, the ultimate goal in life has been becoming the President of the United States. Would you like to be the President of the United States?
I really don't believe I would, Rona, but I would like to see somebody as the President who could do the job, and there are very capable people in this country.
Why wouldn't you dedicate yourself to public service?
Because I think it's a very mean life. I would love and I would dedicate my life to this country, but I see it as being a mean life, and I also see it as somebody with strong views and somebody with the kind of views that are maybe a little bit unpopular, which may be right, but may be unpopular, wouldn't necessarily have a chance of getting elected against somebody with no great brain but a big smile.
Couple of pictures to clear up. First of all, can I show you this screen grab? This is Judge Jeanine Weinbox, more commonly known as Judge Jeanine, the lady from Fox News. She started pushing this garbage that President Biden, during the time he was at the D-Day commemoration, alongside President Macron, was looking for an invisible chair. Absolutely taken out of context. It was just garbage. The split second that the RNC was pushing on social media, anybody with a brain could have seen it was just made up rubbish. Judge Jeanine Pirro doesn't have a brain, put this out, and then deleted it. It's how dumb she is. She really thinks that you put something out on social media and when you delete it, we don't see it. Yes, we do. FOS.
Come here, let me give you a hug.
And the other thing, I said at the time, all of these so-called, Mr. Felioni, we're calling him Don Shitsy Pantsy, randomly drops into restaurants and buys pizza or whatever it is and meets people. It's garbage. It's all set up. You remember Chico Filet, where a random person just happened to see Trump and was bowing down, saying how wonderful he is. Weirdly, she's now spending more social time, her and her cronies, with a former guy in Mar-a-Lago, or somewhere like that. And, he's actually been photographed at war with her than he has with Melania Trump. I had to watch this a few times. Kimberly Guilfoyle reacted to the charges of daddy-in-law being read out. It's brilliant.
It looked
in a few minutes.
Okay.
I don't think it's being read at the moment. What is that?
Okay, so the breaking news that has come in and that we're reading across the news wires is guilty, count 1, guilty verdict, count 2, guilty verdict, count 4, so 3 and 4, count 5, guilty verdict, count 6, guilty verdict. Count 7, guilty verdict. Count 8, guilty verdict. Count 9, guilty verdict. Count 10, guilty verdict. Count 11, guilty verdict. Count 12, guilty verdict. Count 13, a guilty verdict as well. Count 14, a guilty verdict. Okay. Count 15, guilty verdict as well. So this is breaking news, the case of New York versus Donald J. Trump. The jury has voted unanimously, finding him guilty on all charged counts. Your reaction, Jesse?
Inside Donald Trump's prison cell, the surroundings are like any other small, enclosed space. The walls are gray concrete, and a narrow cot with a thin mattress is the only piece of furniture. A tiny metal sink and toilet combo sit in one corner, while a small barred window allows a sliver of natural light to filter in. The sound of clanking bars echoes through the air as guards patrol the hallway outside.
What is...
President Trump is 76 years old. He will die in federal prison.
Trump spends his days pacing the limited floor space. The once powerful man now finds himself in a place of confinement.
I'm no mathematician. I'm really not. I'm not particularly good at accountants and that sort of thing. But even I can work out, mysteriously or miraculously, being given $4 million worth of money, goods, gifts and freebies and all that sort of stuff when you're on the Supreme Court, you're a SCOTUS, you're a Supreme Justice, just stinks. It really does. And just imagine for one moment, it wasn't Clarence Thomas we're talking about. Just imagine for one moment if it was Ketanji Brown Jackson, a Democrat. Could you imagine the uproar? But with this guy, what happened to the swamp? Does anybody care to tell me? Because this guy's the whole river.
The Supremes famously sang, "Love don't come easy. It's just a game of give and take." And that is now the question that is facing Supreme Court justices. Just how much can they take before it starts influencing what they're giving? Tonight, the financial disclosure forms that are just out from the justices reveal a trove of luxury gifts and six-figure book deal payments and a Beyonce ticket or two. But really, all eyes are on Justice Clarence Thomas. He amended his disclosure form from 2019 with two new additions that he says were, quote, inadvertently admitted at the time of the filing. Now, we should note, they were only brought to light publicly because of a ProPublica investigation. The first was a trip to Bali that was paid for by a GOP mega donor, Harlan Crow, and his wife. Thomas also then disclosed a trip paid for by the Crows to a private club in Monterey, California, that same month. He did not place a value on either trip in the disclosure form because it's not required, but the watchdog group Fix the Court said that over the last 20 years, when it comes to both the disclosed and undisclosed gifts, Clarence Thomas is really in a league of his own. Thomas has reportedly received 103 gifts amounting to $2.4 million in value. And it's not even close. Next in line is Justice Antonin Scalia, and he still accepted $2.2 million fewer than Thomas. Joining me now is Justice Correspondent for The Nation and host of their new podcast, Contempt of Court, Elie Mystal, and also with us, the former Trump attorney, Tim Parlatore. Elie, inadvertently omitted. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, so once again, we caught Clarence Thomas in a lie, because when these allegations, when these gifts first came out, were first reported by ProPublica, Thomas said that he was not required to report them on his disclosure form. Now he's saying not reporting them was an inadvertent omission. Well, which one is it, Clarence? And frankly, it doesn't matter which one it is, because there will be no punishment. And so while we can talk about all of these gifts, the $2.4 million, the money that he is raking in, the important thing to remember is that Congress refuses to do anything to stop these people. Congress will not pass ethics legislation. I do not know why Republicans in Congress oppose minimal basic ethics requirements for the Supreme Court. But they do, and so we don't have them, and so nothing, squadoosh, is the number that is going to happen in terms of consequences for Clarence Thomas's corruption and lies.
Members of Congress's staffers, Tim, are subject to more stringent ethical requirements, apparently, than the Supreme Court of the United States. How could that be? And to Ellie's point, I mean, is this not now crying out for Congress to act if they really care at all about preserving even just the appearance of impartiality of the court?
Oh, I agree with Ellie completely on this. This is something that, congressional staffers you mentioned. If you look at the executive branch, I've represented several senior executive branch officials with investigations from the Office of Government Ethics. Military officers are only allowed to accept gifts up to $20. NYPD cops, they get written up if they take a free cup of coffee. There are rules in place for federal judges that limit the gift that they can get at $50, but it specifically exempts the Supreme Court. In the states, it can be even worse. I once had a state Supreme Court justice that I was in front of that during the case had a third party come to me and ask for a campaign contribution for that judge. Any type of thing where they're taking these large gifts, it's an appearance of impropriety. It's something that does, in my opinion, it degrades, the image of impartiality. And I think that I agree with Ellie. This is something that the Congress should act and try and put in some reasonable regulations on.
I stand corrected, by the way. There used to be the story that the former loser guy, 34 felonies and all that sort of stuff, was the person who employed the best people. Not true. That particular vocation goes to Fox News. They had Nancy, what's her name? What is her name? Maybe it's Tequila Night at Fox.
And perjury is a serious crime, and we ought to refer charges over their lies to Congress. There ought to be consequences. The American people ought to know the truth, and this is one way to get them the truth.